I left my umbrella at the diner after Sunday breakfast with my son, and that small, stupid mistake turned out to be the only reason I'm still alive today. My name is Walter. Wait, no. My name is Gene Calloway, and I'm 64 years old, retired after 31 years as a high school history teacher in Columbus, Ohio. I tell people retirement suits me. Quiet mornings, crossword puzzles, the same diner every Sunday. Simple. Predictable. Safe. I had no reason to think anything in my life was anything other than exactly what it looked like. That Sunday in early November, my son had driven in from Cincinnati to have breakfast with me. It was our thing. We'd been doing it almost every month since his mother passed 3 years ago. He'd order the same Denver omelet he'd been ordering since he was 16. I'd get the biscuits and gravy, and we'd sit in the back booth by the window and talk about nothing in particular. Football, his kids' school stuff, whether I was sleeping okay. Normal. He left around 11 to beat the highway traffic back home. I walked out with him, stood in the parking lot watching him pull away, and drove home without thinking twice. It wasn't until I reached my front door and felt the cold drizzle starting that I realized my umbrella was gone. Dark green, wooden handle, had my initials carved into it by my late wife. I wasn't about to leave it behind. The diner was only 10 minutes away. I turned around. The lunch crowd hadn't come in yet when I pushed through the door. The hostess, a young woman named Cora who'd been working there maybe 6 months, looked up from behind the counter and her face did something strange. She didn't smile. She glanced toward the back hallway, then back at me, and her expression was caught between relief and dread. Mr. Proston was caught between relief and dread. Calloway. She said it quietly, like she didn't want to be overheard. I was hoping you'd come back. Something in her voice made the hairs on my arm stand up. I left my umbrella, I said. I know, I found it. But there's something else. She looked around the diner. 2 tables occupied, nobody paying attention. She leaned closer. Your son. After you left. He stayed in the booth for a while. He made a phone call and I was clearing the table right next to him and I heard something that She stopped. Swallowed. Sir, I don't know how to say this. Can you come to the back for a minute? I wrote it down because I was afraid I'd second-guess myself. My heart had already started moving differently. Not fast, just wrong. Like a clock that's slightly out of rhythm. I followed her through the kitchen corridor into the small manager's office. She closed the door and pulled a folded piece of paper from her apron pocket. Her handwriting was careful, like she'd printed each word deliberately. I wrote it down word for word, she said. Almost, as close as I could. She handed it to me and I read it standing there under the fluorescent light. Yeah, it's moving faster than we thought. The doctor wants to do more imaging next month, but if we do this right, it won't matter what the doctors find. No, he doesn't know. He thinks it's just stress. I've been putting it in the coffee. He takes it black so he can't taste it, just a little at a time. His short-term memory is already getting worse. He mentioned it himself this morning, said he's been forgetting things. Yeah, the house is paid off. Between the house and his pension and the retirement account, there's probably close to $600,000. I know it takes time. I just need you to keep him calm and on track. If he starts asking questions about the will, we need to be ready. I read it twice, then a third time. Who was he talking to? My voice came out flat. I don't know. A woman. He called her by name once, but I only caught the last part. I think he said Bev, or maybe Beth. I'm not sure. I folded the paper slowly. My hands were steadier than they had any right to be. Thank you, Cora. Mr. Moat. Calloway, are you okay? Should I call? No. I managed something that probably looked like a nod. Please don't say anything to anyone. Not yet. She gave me the umbrella. I don't remember walking to my car. I sat in the parking lot for a long time. My son, my boy, the one I coached Little League for 4 straight seasons, the one I drove to the emergency room at 2 in the morning when he broke his collarbone freshman year, the one who stood next to me at his mother's graveside and held my arm and cried. He was poisoning my coffee. I thought about the last 4 months, the headaches that had started in July, dull at first, then sharper, more persistent. My doctor had ordered blood panels, said my numbers looked a little off, wanted to check my B12, my thyroid. I'd been tired in ways I couldn't explain. Twice in September I'd gone into the kitchen and genuinely could not remember why I was there. I'd mentioned it to my son over the phone, and he'd said gently, the way he always does, "Dad, you've been under a lot of stress since Mom. That's normal. Just take it easy." He'd said that while he was putting something in my coffee, because he always brought coffee when he visited. Ground beans, specialty stuff. Said he ordered it online because he knew I liked the good kind. I'd been touched by it. I'd thought it was his way of taking care of me. I drove home and I sat at my kitchen table, and I looked at the bag of coffee on my counter. Then I got up and poured it down the drain. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark and went through every visit, every phone call, every small thing that I'd attributed to ordinary life. His wife had been quieter lately around me, more careful. I'd assumed she was just preoccupied. She works long hours as a hospital administrator. But now I thought about the way she'd steered conversations away certain topics, the way she'd gently suggested, twice, that I should think about getting power of attorney sorted out with the family. I'd thought she was being practical, responsible. I had a colleague from my teaching years, a man named Phil Reston, who'd retired early and gone into insurance investigation work. We'd stayed in touch. Occasional fishing trips, a standing fantasy football league. I called him at 7 the next morning. "Phil, I need your help with something, and I need you to not ask me a lot of questions right now." He came over that afternoon. When I told him what I'd heard, what Cora had written down, he sat across from me at the kitchen table and was quiet for a long moment. "You need to go to the police, Gene." With a piece of paper a waitress wrote from memory, "That's not evidence. Then we get evidence." He looked at me steadily. "You are sure you want to do this? Because once we start..." He's been coming into my home every month for 4 months. He brings the coffee himself. He prepares it in my kitchen. My voice broke slightly on that last part, and I let it. I need to know what's in it. And I need it documented. Phil had contacts. Within 2 days, he'd arranged for a toxicology consultation through a private lab he worked with regularly. We set up a small camera in my kitchen, one of those discreet things that looks like a smoke detector, and I called my son. "Hey, Dad." His voice was warm. "Easy. Everything okay?" "I've been feeling run down," I said. "I think that coffee you bring really helps. Any chance you could come by this week? I'm almost out." A pause. Brief, half a second, and then, "Of course. How's Thursday?" "Thursday's perfect." I spent the 2 days before his visit going through my own memory like an archaeologist. When this started, he'd brought the first bag of specialty coffee in July. The headaches began in July. He'd started visiting more frequently, used to be once a month. Now it was closer to every 2 or 3 weeks. I'd been glad for it. I'd thought he was worried about me since his mother died. I'd thought it was love. Thursday morning, I ate a full breakfast and drank water. When he arrived at 10:30, he came in the way he always does. Through the side door I leave unlocked, calling out "Dad" as he came through the kitchen. He looked good. He always looks good. Takes after his mother in that way. Athletic, well-dressed. He hugged me the same way he always does. One of those solid shoulder and back hugs that men give each other when they're trying to say something they don't have words for. I hugged him back and tried not to think about what I knew. He made coffee. I watched him the way you watch a magic trick when you already know how it's done, looking for the moment, the sleight of hand. It came when he was unloading the new bag of beans he brought. His back was partially to me, and his hand went into his jacket pocket and came out again. Quick, practiced. I saw it. I said nothing. We sat and talked for an hour. I accepted the coffee and moved it around in my hands without drinking it. When he went to use the bathroom, I set it aside. He stayed 2 hours total, kissed me on the top of the head the way he started doing after his mother died, and left. Phil came in through the back door before the car was even out of the driveway. Got it, he said, already bagging the coffee. Clean shot of the whole thing. The toxicology report took 4 days. Phil called me on a Tuesday evening. Gene, sit down. I'm already sitting. It's an organophosphate compound, agricultural grade, normally used in diluted pesticide applications. At the concentration they found in the beans and in the residues still in your coffee maker, it causes progressive neurological symptoms, memory disruption, confusion, headaches, fatigue, mimics early-stage dementia in presentation. I didn't say anything. At the dosage rate we're looking at, Phil continued, you were probably 2 to 4 months from severe cognitive impairment, 6 to 8 from being completely non-functional. A neurologist examining you at that stage would almost certainly diagnose early-onset dementia. The compound isn't included in standard toxicology screens. I pressed my hand against the kitchen table like I needed to feel something solid. How do you even get that? That's the interesting part. He paused. His wife. She works hospital administration. She has or has access through her credentials to supplier relationships for medical-grade industrial chemicals. Different division, but the paperwork pathway is there. I'd bet she sourced it, so she knew. Of course she knew. The careful silences, the gentle suggestions about power of attorney. She wasn't preoccupied. She was waiting. I called my attorney the next morning. She'd been my wife's attorney first, had handled her estate, and I trusted her more than almost anyone. When I explained what I had, there was a long silence. Gene, this is attempted murder. Premeditated, ongoing, and documented. You need to go to law enforcement. I know, but you're not going to yet. Another pause. No. She didn't argue. She'd known me long enough. What do you need from me? I need to change my will today. And I need to change my will today. And I need to talk to my son first. I need to hear him say it. I called him that evening and asked him to come over Saturday. Told him I'd been thinking about the future, about the house, about making sure things were in order. I could hear something shift in his voice when I said it. Something that moved underneath the warmth like a current under ice. Of course, Dad, I'll be there. I didn't sleep Friday night either. I lay in the dark in the house where I'd lived for 26 years, where we'd raised him, where his mother had died in the bedroom at the end of the hall, and I tried to find the version of events where this wasn't what it was. I couldn't find it. Saturday morning, Phil parked one street over with a recorder running through my home's Wi-Fi. My attorney was on standby by phone. The police, and yes, I'd call them despite myself because Phil had insisted and he was right, were aware of the situation and were giving me this one conversation first. My son arrived at 9. He brought pastries from the good bakery downtown, the ones I like, and set them on the kitchen table like we were about to have a perfectly normal Saturday morning. I waited until he'd sat down. I know, I said. He looked up. Know what? About the coffee. About what you've been putting in it. His face went through 3 different expressions in about 2 seconds. Then it settled into something I'd never seen on him before. Not guilt, not horror, just a kind of careful stillness. Dad, I have the toxicology report. I have video of you adding something to the beans on Thursday. I have a witness account of your phone call at the diner 2 weeks ago. I kept my voice level. 31 years of talking to teenagers had given me that much. I'm not interested in arguing about whether it happened. I want to know why. The stillness held for another moment. Then he exhaled. We're in trouble, he said. Real trouble. Not the kind of trouble you fix with a little help here and there. He rubbed the side of his face. He looked exhausted, actually, like he hadn't slept in months. Maybe he hadn't. The practice expansion, we borrowed against the house to fund it, and the projections didn't work out the way we planned. We owe more than the practice is worth now. We're looking at losing the house. The kids' college accounts are all ready. We had to touch those. He stopped. We've been drowning for 2 years, Dad. You could have told me. I did tell you. His voice was quiet, but there was something underneath it. Last Christmas, I sat right here and I told you we were in serious financial trouble, and you said you'd help us think through our options. He gave us $25,000 and told us we needed to learn to manage better. I remembered that conversation. I thought I was being measured, responsible, not enabling dependency. 25,000 didn't touch it, he said. We needed real help. And you're sitting on, Dad, between this house and your pension and your accounts, you have more than enough, more than you'll ever spend living alone in Columbus. So you decided not to wait. He didn't answer that directly. She found out about the compound through work. It seemed like it would be peaceful. You wouldn't know. You'd just slowly. He stopped again. I'd just slowly stop being a person, I said, and then you'd have power of attorney and it wouldn't matter. He looked at the table. I'm sorry, Dad. Are you? He looked up, and for a moment he looked like the boy I raised. Actually looked like him. The shame, the genuine shock at what he'd become. Yes, he said, I am. I don't know when I stopped being someone who. I don't know when this became something I thought I could do. Does your wife know you're here today? She knows I'm visiting. Did she know this was going to be a confession? A pause. No. I stood up. My legs were steadier than I expected. I need you to leave now. Dad, I'm not calling the police today. I watched the relief move across his face, and I felt something I couldn't quite name. Not pity exactly, maybe grief. But understand what's happening. My attorney has everything, every piece of evidence, every document, locked in a file with her. If anything happens to me, anything at all, a car accident, a fall, anything, that file goes directly to law enforcement along with a full account of this conversation, which is being recorded right now. I watched him absorb that. You will not contact me. I need time and distance to decide what comes next. He stood. He looked smaller than usual, which surprised me. He's always been a big man, broad-shouldered. What about the kids? That one hit harder than the rest of it. My grandchildren. Both under 10. I took a slow breath. I love those kids. That doesn't change. We'll figure out what that looks like later. Right now, I need you to leave. He left without the pastries. I called my attorney back. Then Phil. Then I sat in my kitchen for a long time and did nothing at all, which felt like the most honest response available. In the weeks that followed, I changed everything. The will went first. My attorney had already drafted revisions. The house, my retirement accounts, my pension remainder, a paid-up life insurance policy. All of it restructured into a charitable trust. The primary beneficiaries, a children's literacy foundation my wife had volunteered with for years, a college scholarship fund at the school where I'd taught, a hospice care organization in Columbus that had been remarkable during my wife's final weeks. A separate provision set aside funds in a custodial account for my grandchildren, structured so that neither their father nor their mother could access or direct the funds until each child reached 25. My son would receive nothing. My daughter-in-law I dealt with separately. I called her on a weekday morning when I knew the kids were at school. She picked up on the second ring, and I told her in simple, direct language what I knew and what I had. She didn't deny it. She started crying, real crying, the kind that doesn't perform well. I believed the tears and didn't particularly care about them. Leonard didn't know, she said. That was her hospital administrator husband. She has a colleague named Leonard, not a husband. I misspoke earlier. He's a vendor contact she'd used to identify the sourcing pathway. The point is, the compound came through her professional access, and she was the one who'd found it and brought it into the plan. It doesn't really matter who knew what at the sourcing stage, I told her. What matters is that you're both aware of where you stand. I sent them both separately a written summary of the legal position they were in. My attorney's name and contact at the top, the evidence inventory at the bottom. In the middle, the terms, no contact with me, no contesting the estate, and the understanding that any suspicious incident involving my health going forward would immediately trigger law enforcement involvement. They signed acknowledgement letters. My attorney countersigned. I never went to the police. I've thought about that choice every week since then. Phil thinks I was wrong. My attorney, to her credit, didn't say one way or the other. She just made sure I understood the implications. The truth is, I couldn't do it. I know what that prison system looks like for people who go in middle-aged. I taught students for 30 years, and I saw what happened to families when parents disappeared. My grandchildren would have grown up with a father in prison for attempted murder, and their mother likely as well. Whatever damage that does to a child, I'd watched enough of it to know it's real and long and hard. What I did instead was remove everything they tried to take. The money is gone from them, not to me exactly, but to the world. To children learning to read, to kids who want to go to college and don't have parents who can pay for it, to people in the final chapter of their lives getting decent care. My wife would have liked that. She was always better than me at knowing what actually mattered. The headache stopped within 3 weeks of stopping the coffee. My memory cleared. I did a full workup with my doctor in December. New doctor, someone unconnected to my son's professional circles, and everything came back normal. Considering I'd been ingesting an organophosphate for 4 months, I was lucky in ways I'm still working on appreciating. I still go to that diner most Sunday mornings. I always sit in Cora's section when she's working, and I tip her the way you tip someone who handed you back your life. She never asks about what happened. I think she's smart enough to know she did the right thing and doesn't need it explained to her. Last spring, she mentioned she was trying to save up for nursing school. Costs for a 2-year program at Columbus State, room and board if she needed to cut her diner hours. I asked her to send me the numbers. I wrote a check and dropped it off the following Sunday. She cried. I told her not to, that she'd more than earned it, that she should go become an excellent nurse and look after people the way she'd looked after a stranger who forgot his umbrella. My son and I don't speak. His wife sends me a photograph of the grandchildren every few months, birthdays, holidays. I've chosen to believe she does this because she understands it's the least she can do and perhaps the beginning of something like reparation. I look at those photographs for a long time. Both kids have their grandmother's eyes. That part doesn't change. I'm not going to tell you what he did made sense to me once I understood the financial pressure. Debt is real. Desperation is real. I know what it feels like to have a problem that seems bigger than every available solution, but there's a specific kind of fracture that happens in a person when they cross from desperate to willing. And I don't think you come all the way back from it without a long time and serious work. I hope he does that work. For his kids, if nothing else. What I know is this. I'm 64 years old and I feel better than I did at 63, which is either a medical miracle or a reminder that the body knows when it's being harmed even when the mind doesn't. I have my mornings. I have my crossword. I have a diner 10 minutes away where a young woman who decided not to mind her own business is saving up for school. The green umbrella with my wife's initials is hanging by my front door. I don't leave home without it anymore. Sometimes the smallest things are the ones that save you. And sometimes saving yourself means deciding very carefully what kind of person you want to be when the worst of it is over. I'm still figuring that out, but I'm here to figure it out, and for now, that's enough. I keep the umbrella by the front door now. Every time I reach for it, I think about how close I came to never reaching for anything again. There's a version of this story where Cora minds her own business, where she clears that table, pockets my umbrella behind the counter, and figures that whatever she overheard between a man and his phone call is none of her concern. That version ends with me in a memory care facility 18 months from now, confused and fading, while my son signs papers I can't understand anymore. She chose differently. She wrote down every word she could remember, folded it into her apron pocket, and waited to see if I'd come back. That kind of courage. The ordinary, unglamorous kind that doesn't come with any reward guaranteed is rarer than people think. It's what I'd call true character. Not the character you perform when people are watching, but the one that shows up when no one would ever know the difference. I've thought a lot about my son since all of this. Not with the rage people might expect, but with something closer to sorrow and a hard, clear-eyed understanding of how a person gets from point A to a place like that. He didn't wake up one morning and decide to be someone who poisons his father. It happened in increments, one rationalization at a time, 1 month of debt bleeding into the next, until the unthinkable started to look like the only practical option left. That's what desperation does when it goes unchecked by honest thinking. It doesn't announce itself. It quietly rearranges your sense of what's acceptable until you've crossed a line you can't even see anymore. What I wish he'd had hipped and built, was the discipline to sit with a hard problem without flinching away from it. To call me and say the real number, not the softened version. To tolerate the discomfort of asking for genuine help instead of engineering a solution that required my absence. That kind of mental toughness, the ability to face what's actually true even when it's humiliating, is something you have to practice before you need it. By the time you're drowning, it's too late to learn to swim. I don't say any of this to excuse what he did. Actions have consequences that don't care about your reasoning. He made choices, his wife made choices, and those choices restructured everything. Their inheritance, my trust, the shape of our family going forward. That's not punishment I designed. It's just the weight of what they set in motion, landing exactly where weight lands. What I can control is who I am now. I still go to that diner. I still tip Cora well. Better than well, honestly, in ways that I hope actually change something about her next few years. I gave to causes my wife believed in. I show up for my grandchildren in whatever ways remain available to me. I get up in the morning and I drink my coffee without fear, which is something I will never again take for granted. I'm 64. If I'm lucky, I've got 20 good years left, maybe more. I intend to spend them being someone worth the saving.